Are we on the brink of a global trade war? Well, in the next few hours, President Trump is planning on unveiling fresh tariffs on Chinese trade. Now, this could really sour relations between Washington and Beijing, with China already responding, saying it will retaliate. At the center of the dispute, claims that China is stealing U.S. technology and intellectual property, allegations that have produced a frosty response. It's just weeks since President Trump announced a raft of sanctions on foreign-produced steel and aluminium. The controversial move prompted the resignation of his top economic advisor. Now he's set to go further and target China with tariffs on a range of other goods. The focus of White House anger this time, the alleged theft of U.S. innovation and design.
Our view is that we have a very serious problem of losing our intellectual property, which is really the biggest single advantage of the American economy, in my opinion, is our intellectual property and our ability to generate new intellectual property. We are losing that to China in ways that are not reflective of the underlying economics.
So what measures will the U.S. take? New America tariffs are likely to target China's high-technology sector, including semiconductors, consumer electronics, and everyday items such as clothing and shoes. China hasn't waited for the White House to make its announcement. A spokesman has accused the United States of abusing global trade rules and is ready to retaliate.
We resolutely oppose this type of unilateral and protectionist action by the US. China will not sit idly by while legitimate rights and interests are hurt. We must take all necessary measures to firmly defend our interests.
Hosting the Chinese leader at Mar-a-Lago last year, Mr. Trump described President Xi as incredibly talented, and he's praised Mr. Xi for his role in pressuring North Korea. However, this trade row threatens to cast a shadow over those relations, especially given the warnings from Beijing. Okay, joining me now is Wendy Cutler from the Asia Society Policy Institute. She's also a former acting deputy U.S. trade representative. Thanks very much, Wendy, for joining us here on the program. The rhetoric really is escalating now.
It sure is. The temperature is rising on both sides. We're expecting an announcement within a few hours of tariff measures that the U.S. will put into place. And the Chinese have been very clear that they are going to counter-retaliate right away. It doesn't seem like they're going to wait to file a case in the WTO against us. And so these will be the opening shots in what could turn out to be a trade war.
When they say we will retaliate, what do they mean? What could they potentially do?
Well, they have a lot of tools at their disposal. They can respond by increasing tariffs against selected U.S. imports into China, particularly in the agriculture sector. They could also harass our companies by imposing new regulatory requirements on them or not going forward with inspections. They could go to the WTO. They could do a combination of all of this. So we'll need to see.
I mean, this is a risky strategy because it could directly hit U.S. farmers.
Correct. And not just U.S. farmers, but U.S. consumers, other U.S. companies, and their workers. That said, I think we all need to understand that the underlying cause of the, which is leading the administration to take this action is valid. We have concerns about unfair trade practices in China, particularly with respect to theft of intellectual property. So I think there's widespread consensus in the United States that that is a real problem. The issue is, how do you most effectively address it without hurting U.S. interests?
Now, this is something, obviously, that President Trump hasn't been shy about. He's said it throughout the campaign. He's promised it. Do you think it's part of a bigger strategy for him, or is he just fulfilling campaign promises now?
Well, this action would come on the heels of the announcement just a few weeks ago on steel and aluminum tariffs. And let's keep in mind, those tariffs are to go into effect tomorrow, March 23rd. And so the combination of steel and aluminum tariffs and now tariffs against China, we'll all have to see what comes next. But clearly the temperature is rising on trade.
The temperature is rising, but there are also people who say that actually it's China who's in the position of weakness. So, you know, we may not see a trade war if President Trump just doesn't budge.
Look, both sides have a real interest in trying to not enter into a trade war and to work these issues out and to create a level playing field. So my view is once these initial actions are taken, the U.S. Takes actions against Chinese imports, China responds with some type of retaliation. Hopefully, we won't go to the next step, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail. Both sides will recognize that they need to come together and try and solve the important issues at hand. That would be the best scenario going forward, in my mind.
Because frankly, you know, many economists would say that there are no winners in a trade war.
Absolutely. There's so many losers, and losers that we're not even thinking about right now. But once again, it can affect U.S. consumers paying higher prices on products that get caught up in this tariff tit for tat. It can cause U.S. companies to lose sales and investment in China and their workers here in the United States.
Wendy Cutler from the Asia Society, thank you so much.
Thank you.